He's got some information that's very valuable. I want you to listen to what he has to say, and I want to congratulate you. That was great. Thanks, Ted.
Hey, you made it. Welcome. Glad that you're here. Today we're going to go over our topic, which is liquid crystals, and really how this plays into our physical body, but ultimately how it influences and affects our ability to transmit, to attract, and to get the stuff that we want. It's about creating another layer of awareness. And really, this is about tools for you. This is about you being able to get what you want out of life and utilizing some of the tools that are sitting there being used. I was almost going to say not being used. Yeah, they're being used by you, but if you're not aware of it, you're using them incorrectly. You're using them in the wrong way. You're using them to your detriment. Like any tool, it's just there. It inherently doesn't have the power. It's how you use the tool. So we're going to get into the living liquid crystal matrix of our world, of our physical body, and the implication of that. I'm also going to introduce a new segment today called Behind the Curtain. And essentially, I want to move more in this direction too. Behind the Curtain is just going to be, anytime I do a segment called Behind the Curtain, it's going to be about me sharing some examples of my life, of my personal life, and how I've hit some roadblocks and some obstacles and some trouble, some timis. So it's a way for me to show you in real time how I work through the things. Because, dude, I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not the guru. I'm not Mr. Master. Okay, but I know a few things. I've been around the block and I've studied this for years, as have you. So hopefully that this will create a platform for us so that the mess in my life, not that my life is a mess or anything, but the things that we call our problems, the mess, I'm going to turn that into the message. I'm going to let you sort of peek behind the curtain, and instead of trying to put forth this image of how perfect I am and how I have it all figured out, I'm just going to be just really honest and really open and give you some examples and show you how this stuff works. So that'll be Behind the Curtain. And I'm going to share something that happened with me recently with you guys. So first I got to say that I am pre-recording this video because, I'm not live on the class with you today because I'm actually in traffic school. Yay! I'm sure any of you who have ever been to traffic school can pick up on the sarcasm there. But let me tell you what happened. I drove around a parked school bus, and I gotta tell you the story here, okay? I'm setting it up so I sound awful. I drove around a school bus that was, doing the loading and unloading children. That's like a big no-no. You never drive around a school bus. And I understand that, and I understand why. And I agree with that. I think it's very important. But I drove past and I went home. The school bus driver then followed me and, drew a map of my house and, the streets and my car to turn it into the police. So then a few days later, a policeman shows up at my front door and says, "Here is a ticket for you and you must appear in court for this." So let me tell you just why I drove around the bus. Because it's not as horrible as it sounds. In fact, it's an interesting situation, as life often is. It's never just all or nothing. It's never black and white. It's never like right or wrong. Do this, it's right. Do that, it's wrong. There's nuances to it, and the truth lies in the middle. All right. I live in a neighborhood. There's one way in, one way out. So the bus is on that road. So I have to go around the bus. I have to go down that road. Well, the bus stops a few houses up the road, and it picks up a handicapped child. So the child's in a wheelchair, one of those motorized ones where they work it here with their hand. So the bus pulls off on the side of the road, And then the kid will come out of the house, and I've seen the girl several times, come in and out of the house. Well, the bus would be there for at least 10 minutes, sometimes longer. So there's a little sign on the side of the bus, the stop sign, that pops out. And there's lights on the bus. And when they're red and the stop sign is out, you don't go around the bus. But if the lights are yellow, they mean caution. They mean, pay attention. It's usually what happens when the bus is slowing down, about to stop. The yellow lights come on, so get your attention. Caution. So this bus pulls off to the side. And I've been behind this bus many times before. I've had the driver come out and wave us around before, and I've been behind other people in line that when the bus pulls off and just sits there for a while with the yellow lights on, they go ahead and they go around. So I've actually gone around this bus, as have several people in my neighborhood before. I think maybe as a learned behavior on my part, I thought this is, acceptable. This is how it works. So on this particular day, I pull up behind the bus, they pull off to the side, and I'm slowly coming up, and there's no stop sign, there's no red lights, the yellow lights are flashing. I very slowly go around, being very cautious, and as I get down the street, I see the bus driver will come running out in the road and shaking his fist in the air. So immediately I'm like, oh shit, I think I made the guy mad or something. In my mind, I didn't understand why today was any different than any other day. Okay? So he, drives by my house and drives by again and parks right out front and draws his map. And he's trying to I can see him through the window where I work in my office, staring, he was mad. All right. And you know how you are when you're mad. You see red, you get hot, you just, So he turns it into. A few days later, a police officer shows up at the house, says you have to appear in court. And I said to the officer, well, I'm not really sure that this is fair. That's not the first time I have gone around that bus or other people in the neighborhood. I mean, that's the normal thing. I think that the bus driver maybe was being unfair. Maybe he was in a bad mood or something, or maybe he woke up on the wrong side of the bed or whatever it is. I don't know. So I'm feeling justified here, right? I'm like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. This is what I normally do. This is how he trained me. He sort of taught me to do this. It's not my fault. It's that guy. He did it. So I have to go to court. So this means this day I have to rearrange my wife, Dr. Katie. She's in the office that day. And I have the kids, so we have to rearrange the hours, and we have to have someone watch the kids, and it's just a big ordeal. And I'm in this courtroom with some rough-looking people, some people there that were, they were going to jail over some, pretty heavy offenses. And here I was, I felt very out of place. I was kind of scared, really, because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I have an opportunity to go up there and I don't get to say anything. I just either get to say guilty or not guilty. And if I say guilty, then they say, here's your fine, pay it, and leave. If I say not guilty, then they say, all right, let's set another date so that you can come back in here and plead your case. And I'm thinking, I don't want to mess with this. I don't want to do this. They got me here, okay? So I just say guilty. I pay the money. It was like $300 and something that the city gets from me, which I'm not happy about by any means. But, if this is a belief I have, that if you have a problem and you can make it go away by writing a check and you're in a position where you can do that, then it's not really a problem. That was something that my dad said to me, when I was really young, and it sort of stuck in my head. I thought it was trite at first, but as I got a bit older, okay, there's some truth. I can see the opportunity cost of trying to fight something like that. It wasn't worth it. But here's the lesson, okay? I didn't feel like I did anything horribly wrong. I felt like I was in the right. My wife even was like, you should have told the judge that the sign wasn't out and that, it's confusing and we're not sure what to do, because some days they say go, and then some days apparently they get mad when you go. It's a mixed message, and we need to be clear on that. So the bus, it's a few houses down the road, so I see it every day. And I started getting mad. When I saw that bus, I got mad. I was mad at the bus driver. I was mad at the police officer. I was mad at the judge. And ultimately, I think a lot of that was me deflecting, being mad at myself. I didn't really want to be accountable. I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't want to be like the guy that, did this horrible thing and own up to it, okay? And that's pretty common for all of us. Anytime you do something in your life, accepting responsibility for it is tough. Like, we love to take responsibility for all the good things, right? If it's an awesome, thing that we manifest, like I'm walking down the road and I see $100 and I pick it up and I'm like, I am an attraction machine. Look at this. I manifested $100. I'm so awesome. But when something horrible happens, we tend to not go, look at what I did. I created this horrible thing. We go, not me, them. They did it. I'm just a poor little old victim over here. So I was kind of playing that card. I certainly... See, can you see here, like, let's just step back from this. Can you see the nuances of this? Can you see that it's not black or white? That it's not right or wrong? It's not 1 or 0, yin or yang, hot or cold, alive or dead, up or down, day or night. It's not. The truth is in the middle. And there's nuances to everything that happens to us in our life. So I found myself getting tense, I was just angry. I was pissed off. I was angry. I would be in bed in the morning, and there's a bus that goes by real early before we even get out of bed, and I would hear that bus go by, and I would just think about this thing that happened to me, and I'd get mad, and I'd get worked up, and I'd just get into it, and the adrenaline, and all of the chemicals that go along, and the emotions, and I would just replay it, and I would replay it, and I would replay it. And what I realized after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks of this, I was going for a walk one afternoon, and that bus pulled up and dropped the girl off at the house. And I saw the bus coming, and I changed my walk, and I went a different way so that I didn't have to walk by the bus, and I didn't have to see the bus driver. There was like shame or whatever it was negative, guilt or anger, frustration. It wasn't good is the point. I was trying to rearrange my life, redirect my course to avoid something that was painful. And I realized this thing, whether I am, walking over here so I don't see it, whether I see it or not, it's affecting me. It is messing up my flow. And I got to get right with this, okay? I know through the tools, through my experience, I know that it's stored in a part of my limbic brain, and it is stored out here in the field in a way that is not serving me. Okay? It's there for a reason, and it's there for me to learn something. There is a lesson here. There is a golden nugget. There is a silver lining, and I have to actively find it. I got to figure out what it is. So I got to get to work, okay? Because nothing in my life happens to me. This didn't happen to me. It happened for me. It happened for me so that I could learn something. So what do I got to learn? How is this serving me? What's the lesson? How can I be better? Why am I glad that this happened? Okay? Why am I glad that this happened? Why am I happy? Because I knew that every time I thought of that bus or that bus driver or that courtroom or that police officer knocking on the door, I even would get tense. Someone would ring the doorbell and I was like, oh no, it's another police officer coming to do, I don't know. I knew that it was killing me. Okay, I was stuck. I had put gunk into the field. I had put junk there, and by doing that, cut off my connection with source. I had placed a memory in my neural networks in a way that was repeating and not serving me. It was no longer good. It wasn't good. So I knew I had to reframe that, and I had to reprogram that, and I had to rewire it. Essentially, here's how simple it is. I had to be able to think of it and feel good. I had to be able to think of the bus driver and be happy, right? I had to be able to see the bus drive by and go, hey, there goes that bus. I'm reminded of that awesome lesson that I learned, Okay? I begin this process, and I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't figured it out yet. Okay? So the big climax, I'm going to take it away from you right now. But there's steps involved in it. There's steps in it. Because you don't just learn something and then it's all okay. It's almost like the universe tests you. Like you think you got it, here comes the test. And I found that I begin this by playing the understanding game. So what I call the understanding game is when I think in my mind about their situation and that there must be something going on with them that caused them to, act the way they did. So if I'm in traffic and someone's driving like a maniac, I think, oh, that person probably just got news that their wife is about to have a baby and they're on their way to get to the hospital before the child comes into the world. Or maybe they just got word that their spouse, had a health emergency and they're flying to go to the hospital to be there. You can fill in the blank. You can play the understanding game. So I'm thinking, and this is even a lesson from Don Miguel Ruiz. He wrote the book, The Four Agreements. Where is that book? Boy, I won't search for it right now. But if you haven't read that, Four Agreements is a terrific read, a short book. One of them is don't take things personal. The things that people do are not about you. They're about them. So I'm trying to apply this knowledge. See, if you know something and you don't do anything about it, then you don't know it. All right? To know and not to do is to not know. So how are you going to put these nuggets of knowledge into action? So I'm thinking, I got this nugget. It's not about me. It's about them. So I'm playing the understanding game. Maybe this person got horrible news. Maybe their child is sick. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they took a cut in pay. Maybe they, maybe their basement flooded. Just fill in the blanks, okay? There are things going on in all of our lives that cause us sometimes to act out in ways that later we might regret, but ultimately the things that we do are about us. They're not about other people. And so the same is true in reverse. The things that other people do are not about us. It's about them. Okay, so are you guys with me so far? Good. So the first step for me was and there's the 5 steps of forgiveness is something that I teach. And you can find that on, if you want to know more about it, maybe we'll do that in our next class. We'll go through the steps of forgiveness. But regardless, it was the first step for me to begin to soften up the whole thing. To be able to go, hey, maybe that guy driving that bus, maybe he's going through some stuff. So maybe me using my intention and my thoughts, like laser, like radio waves of just like piercing and penetrating this guy with hatred. Maybe that's not the best thing for him. I know it's not the best thing for me. Maybe in this moment in his life, when he's acting out, almost like a child would act out because they don't know how to speak or express the words, so they act them out, or what we call acting out. Maybe what he needs right now is love. Maybe he needs connection or sense of closeness or belonging or acceptance. Maybe he needs to feel connection. Maybe he's so distant right now that he's acting out in order to create circumstances in his life to get him to wake up. Just like me. This thing happened to me to get me to wake up to something. All right. And I'm still discovering what that is. Ultimately, maybe it has something to do out of my awareness, because I tell you, I'm never going to go around any bus ever again. I probably won't even, if I would always laugh a little bit at my stepmother. She'd pull up to a crosswalk and she'd stop and there'd be a person there to go, and the person would wave and say, go on, go on. And she would say, no, you go. Because if I go, even though you're being nice and you waved me on, that's illegal. And if some, policeman sees that, then I broke a civil code or whatever, I broke a law. So I'm going to get a ticket. I'm going to go see the judge, and they're going to, evacuate some funds from my bank account because that pedestrian told me to go ahead and I went, but that's not the way it works. And I get it. I at one point I thought that was silly and ridiculous, but I had to learn myself. See, what I could have done was learn from her in that experience. I totally could have done that. See, that's what wisdom is. Wisdom is learning from other people's experiences, other people's mistakes. It's getting the lesson that they're sharing so that you don't have to go out and do the thing, make the mistake, and learn it the hard way. This is why books are so important. I honestly believe that every one of these books that I own was written just for me. It's the author trying to take the knowledge in their head and pass it on to me so that I can learn from them, so that I can stand on the shoulders of giants without having to go through and do all of this stuff from scratch and do it all on my own. My starting line is from their finish line. So in this spirit, if you're hungry and have an appetite for learning and information, then we're always pushing the bar. And each lesson that we learn as we share it, just like I am here, helps you in your own personal life to begin from that point. That's wisdom. It's learning from other people's mistakes. So I challenge you, is there something going on in your own personal life right now that, it's like me with the bus driver down here, and every time you see it, every time you're reminded of it, tense, tighten up. I know there is. I have several of them. And I'm the guy here, talking about this stuff and kind of teaching it. But I'm human. And so are you. And you go through these experiences, all right? So it's very, very important for you to have the awareness. And as as you and I talk about these things, I get a little deeper into them in the conversation of the awareness of the subtle matter or subtle bodies that exist outside of our physical world. There is the energetic field or etheric body where exists the chakra system and the meridian, life force. That above that is the astral, the emotional body. See, I got some seriously charged emotions stored in that area, and they're manifesting in my physical life and in my cellular chemistry, like in my physiology. But I at least know that that's all secondary, that's an effect. It's not the cause. I'm not angry and mad because of a chemical imbalance, okay? I'm angry and mad because of some unresolved lesson from some gunk that I've got out here in the field. And the only way I get rid of it, the only way I move the distraction, I eliminate the wall that I've been building, I get rid of the dissonance, the interference. The way I get rid of it is by learning the lesson, by seeing the good, by wishing them well, and being happy that it all took place so that I can feel good. And every time I think about it, I can feel great. See, that's all there is to it. Essentially, this goes into a cool conversation about the way that we store experiences that happen to us in our life. Because the total foundation of the work that I do in a clinical setting, in a clinical application, people come to me because they have physical pain and emotional pain and traumas and stuff. A lot of them, they're not hip to this conversation. So I spend a lot of time, wading into the water with them to see how deep they want to go. But it's about them understanding that the experiences that happen in the past are still stored here in the memory and are still influencing and affecting the physical body and the physiology and the current state of your health. So if you want to be healthy and happy, you want to have longevity, you want to have flexibility and strength and stamina and endurance, and you want to feel good, and you want to be clear-headed, and you want to be bright-eyed, and you want to be the kind of person that people are attracted to, that is intriguing, that wants to always be in a perpetual state of moving forward and growth, and you have to understand that your past influences your ability to do that. So there's a really cool article, and I'll hook this up underneath the webinar replay so that you can go and read the article yourself. I'm going to pull it up on my phone here. It was a researcher who was in the field of memory, and I've gone to a certain spot here that I want to read you, so I'm not going to scroll back up to tell you her name and her college and all of her fancy titles and all of that stuff. what I want you to get out of this, and I'm going to read this one quote here from the article. What they were doing was talking about fear training. And they were saying that we have these memories or fear type memories in our brain, and they're scientists, so it's all about the brain and the protein synthesis and injecting chemicals to block that kind of thing. But the idea here, this is really fascinating, that you could take, in the example, they took a person, they set them in front of a monitor, and they hooked a wristband on them that delivered a mild shock. Nothing that was painful, but it was annoying. And they set a series of images across, and one of them was a blue cylinder on the screen they were watching. And whenever the blue cylinder happened, right after that, they got a shock. And so they watched images for 3 minutes, and they were measuring with a galvanic skin response. They claimed that it was a fear measure. Actually, what galvanic skin response is doing is measuring the responsiveness of your autonomic nervous system. So this is sympathetic, parasympathetic balance. The skin response was showing the change in physiology. So they saw the blue cylinder, they got a shock, the little meter picked it up and made the reading. So what they discovered is after about 3 minutes, they didn't even have to shock him anymore. He saw the blue cylinder, and his body reacted just like he was about to have the shock, as confirmed by the galvanometer on the skin. So what I'm trying to get you to understand here is that the memory of what happened created a physical response in the body. All right, it's not that far-fetched for you to wrap your head around, I think, but I want you to apply this in your life, not looking at blue cylinders on a screen, but like in my example, seeing a school bus way across town that has nothing to do with this one. Laying in bed in the morning, hearing another school bus go by that wasn't even the same one, but in my physical body, I'm having all the same responses. I'm having all of the same physiology and stress or fear-based chemistry take place as if that thing was happening. And so in the experiment, they would do these experiments with rats also. They found that they injected something, it was some drug. It would block the retrieval of the memory. Okay, so let me just read some of this word for word. Decades of research had established that long-term memory consolidation requires the synthesis of proteins in the memory pathways. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But no one knew that the protein synthesis was required after the retrieval of the memory as well, which implied that the memory was being consolidated then too. The consolidated part is earlier in the article. Basically what they're saying is they could put a protein in and block the memory, but they had to put the protein drug in right after the memory happened. So with the rats, they played a noise and then they shocked them. They played a noise and then they shocked them. So the rats learned when the noise happens, we're going to get a shock. So it's a Pavlovian kind of thing. But what they did was, and they knew that they would, when they heard the noise, they would freeze. So the rats knew it was coming. So they quit shocking them. They played the noise, but they wouldn't shock them. The rats would still freeze. So if they injected this protein right after they played the noise, then it blocked the retrieval of the memory, is what they thought. And they're like, this will work great in people that have post-traumatic stress disorder, people that have stresses going on in their life that when they recall them, they totally short circuit and everything goes haywire. So let's deliver them this drug. It'll block the recall of the memory. So like the rats are now able to hear the noise, the loud noise, and they don't freeze. They don't recall the memory that means I'm going to get shocked. Okay, but here's the tricky thing, and this is why I'm sharing this. This is so cool. What they found was they had to deliver the drug right away. If they waited 6 hours and delivered the drug, it didn't work at all. All right, so let me say that again. The drug had to be delivered right away, right after the recall of the memory. Okay, so I'm going to insert my opinion here because in this quote, was their conclusion. If Nader waited 6 hours before giving the drug, it had no effect and the original memory remained intact. This was a big biochemical clue that at least some forms of memory essentially had to be neurally rewritten every time they were recalled. Okay? It's saying that the memory wasn't just there and they hit play and then it happened. It's saying that the memory had to be neurologically rewired every time it was recalled. Okay, so here's my question. If it's being recalled, where's it being recalled from? All right, if it's not a neural network memory that's in the brain, it's not like neuroplastically ingrained in there. If they're recalling it, then they're having to rewire and retransmit in order to have the physiology take place. What I'm telling you guys is it's in the field. It's in these subtle layers that I'm teaching you about. It's in these parts of the emotional body, or what's called astral body. I just like to call it emotional body. You know, the seat of our consciousness, our soul, our awareness. It's in the mental body. And I don't know this definitively either. Okay, I'm not an expert on all these fields, and the way that I've best tried to show you evidence and explain these in some of our past classes is in order to bring you here to this point, to start applying some of the things that are happening in our Western world, our analytical, left brain, linear type of thinking, and our physical world, to take those concepts to this bigger picture so that you can go here with me and you can really understand the effect of this, okay? And this is all leading up to our liquid crystals, because ultimately I'll tell you what it's going to be. It's that you're a giant amplifier. You're a big crystal. And you're amplifying the thoughts, just like tools that don't necessarily have an inherent value of being positive or negative. They're just tools, and it just depends on how you use them. So I'm telling you that your mind is the thing that you're choosing to use, you know, appropriately or inappropriately, which is kind of a judgment. You're just using it in a way that's giving you a result. And so if it's not going towards your end goal, you know, whatever your finish line is, then I'm calling that inappropriate use of your mind. It's funny that, like, we call things good or bad, or like a failure, success or failure, when really life is just a bunch of like hypotheses that we're testing. Like if you go into a lab, a scientific lab, and you have a hypothesis, and you go through and you have your null, and you go through the testing of it, if it doesn't turn out, if the experiment doesn't turn out to confirm your hypothesis, then we call that a failure. All right, but it's not really a failure. It was just I had an idea and I did this and it didn't work the way I thought. See, in other languages, there's a word for that. There's just not one in English. We call it a failure. And so we think in our life when we have failure that I tried to do something and it didn't work, so I failed. No, you had an idea and you went about a certain methodology to try and get that, and it didn't happen. So you go, great, just like Edison with the light bulb, who, you know, tried it 200 times or 2,000 times, whatever it is, I don't remember. But he never felt like he failed. He just found another way it didn't work, and another way it didn't work. So he had that mindset in place there. Boy, I just totally went off track there for a second. Let me bring it back in. What I want to do is I want to move into our section about liquid crystals, about the living matrix of our cellular, our genetic, our biology, our physical makeup. And we're going to start off by just really recapping some of the other lessons that we've learned, and then getting into just an idea of what the heck crystals are, okay? So you are a crystal. And I want to first start by what crystal means and what the definition of it is. Because as we have been building a case through our classes over the last 4 or 5 classes, that there is more than just the physical world and the physical body. That science has proven to us through rigorous scientific method testing that there is evidence of something greater, that we are maybe not perceiving it directly, but picking up, lower octave harmonics of the true essence of what we're trying to measure and record, but you cannot argue with the fact that it's there just because we don't totally understand it. Same way we didn't understand radio waves or X-rays, but now we've got those mastered, and even though we don't see them, we know how to harness the power of that tool and use it to our advantage. So this discovery process is about us trying to harness the power of these invisible things so that we get a greater understanding of our world, our physical bodies, our mind, our awareness, our field, and our ability to create an awesome life. We call it law of attraction. That's, I guess, a newer term. Napoleon Hill was writing about this stuff, in the early 1900s. He didn't call it law of attraction, but it's the same thing, all right? This is about you understanding the influence of these subtle matter bodies around you, outside of you, in the field. And crystals are a very important part of it. So I'm not going to go crazy into like crystal healing. I'm not going to get all super esoteric on you or anything like that. But I'm going to stick my toe in that pool for a little bit because I think it lends something valuable to our conversation here. So the idea of a crystal, and I'm going to look at my phone here because I actually went and found this so that I could read it to you word for word today. Crystal or crystalline is what you'll find, because if you look up crystals, you just see like gems and stones that come from the earth. But it's called a crystal because of its crystalline nature. And in essence, it just means that it's perfect in its order and repetition. There are no impurities to it. So here's a few definitions of crystalline. A homogeneous solid formed by a repeating three-dimensional pattern of atoms, ions, or molecules having fixed distance between its parts. Perfect in its order, balance, and form. Okay? By this definition, a brick wall is a crystal. You see the bricks there? They're all perfectly placed. They're all spaced perfectly. All right? I want you to begin to wrap your head around this idea. And I'm going to introduce this concept of piezoelectricity or semiconductors because here's another definition of crystalline: a natural or synthetic crystalline material having piezoelectric or semiconducting properties. Another definition: an electrical device containing such a material as one that provides access to a radio frequency. Okay, that is super cool because it's saying right here in the dictionary that the definition of crystalline is something that has access to frequency. Okay, so just go with me on this. Crystals are something that we have used for, in technology, in our culture, in the advancement of stuff. Let me show you this cool one. This is one that a friend brought me from Australia. So where I live in Arkansas, there's a lot of crystals, but this was just crazy. This smoky quartz crystal, just a monster. She said on her property in Australia, she was just walking around and picked this up and brought it to me when she came over to the States for a seminar. And very, very special to me because of that reason. Just a very wonderful, powerful, energetic lady. But crystals aren't necessarily a weird thing because they have the ability to store information. There was in the 60s I'm going to draw a blank on it. Well, it doesn't matter, but it was a research facility in Germany that used laser, like the concept of holograms that we went through, and how you take a laser, a beam of coherent light, and you split it and you shoot it at different things, and one's a working beam, one's a reference beam, they interfere with each other, and we capture the interference pattern. That's the hologram. The nature of our universe is holographic in nature, that there is an interference pattern that exists and permeates through everything that contains all of the information. It's the idea of unity, that the greatest piece is contained in the smallest piece. Like the DNA has in every single cell has the ability to make every single cell in your whole body. Okay, the big body has all the information to make it in the smallest piece inside the DNA of every single cell. Okay, so these guys they actually recorded a holographic movie on a crystal. It was a lithium niobate crystal. And several other people have done it since then, but they would put the information into the crystal as like a memory card. They would store it in there, and then they would take the crystal and just turn it a little bit, and it would open up new access points for storage. So they were able to store a movie on this lithium niobate crystal. Like, that just blew my mind. But we use crystal all the time in like your phone, the computer, whatever you're using to watch this right now is storing memory on silicone crystal. It's a chip in your computer. And they'll go into the laboratory and they'll grow these crystals. They call it doping. When they grow a specific type of crystal in a controlled environment so there's no impurities, and they add certain elements in different amounts at different times to give that crystal different qualities and characteristics. Because if an impurity gets in there, then it messes up the perfect order and repetition. So the crystal is no longer as pure and as functional and as powerful. We use crystals in like a watch, or like you know how a calculator has a little solar panel on it? Well, those are silicone. They're silicone crystals that they use in that, but they are able to harness energy from the sun, all right, and transform that energy into electricity that's used to power the calculator, to power the watch. This is called an LCD, or a liquid crystal display. See, and you may have known that already, but there it is, liquid crystal display. So these liquid crystal ideas are all around us all the time. And I'm building a case here for you, okay? The next part about the liquid crystal, sorry, I just want to make sure that I have my clock on. The next idea really in the technology or the application of this is inside of a little watch, okay, like a digital watch that has the LCD screen. They will grow specific crystals and cut sheets of them real thin, and they'll put a battery in the watch. And here's why. These crystals exhibit something called piezoelectricity. What that means is if you put mechanical pressure or stress on the crystal, it will emit an electrical signal or an electrical field, an oscillating field. Okay? And the opposite is true. If you put electrical stress on it, then it will create create like a movement, which is an oscillation. All right? It's like a metronome. It's a beat counter. It's the timepiece. It's the pacemaker. It keeps the beat so that your watch knows 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And so the watch can just run and run and run and run. Well, it's because of the battery stimulating the crystals that are inside of the timepiece, creating an oscillating electrical field that is in a perfect rhythm. And the timepiece is set by the rhythm of those fields generated from the crystal. Pretty cool, huh? So what does this have to do with anything? Well, I'm glad that you asked. One of the things that I'm fascinated with is how our physical bodies and how just in nature we follow this form. So I'm going to take something like a cell membrane. A cell membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. You don't have to know it. If you could look up a picture of it if you want. Maybe I'll put some pictures of some things underneath the webinar replay for you guys also, so you can see some of the pictures. Sorry, I can't do it for you right now, but all of these structures in our physical anatomy are perfect in their order and repetition, just like the definition of a crystal. Now, people hear crystal and they think like a hard rock, like a diamond or a quartz or a ruby or something like that, which ruby was used in developing the very first laser. If you didn't know that, a little fun fact for you, it was a crystal. Because in essence, a laser is a crystal. A laser is a series of wavelengths of light that are coherent. It means that they all march together. When one goes up, the other one goes up and down. And they don't cross and interfere with each other and create chaos or incoherence. It's coherent light. That's the definition of a laser, is coherent light waves. So it was created by a ruby, by a crystal. See, it was the perfection. It was the perfect order and repetition of the crystal that created the coherency of the light so that we had a laser. And now we can have like pocket lasers, like those little red pointers that you make your cat chase around all over the place. The little red dot, the laser pointer. There's crystals in that are creating that. So, where was I going with that? I want to talk about something right here, and so I said I was going to dip my toe into the esoteric pool, and it's this concept of Atlantis. And I don't know a bunch about it. Shoot, there's thousands of books written about this, and I'm not trying to make a case for it either. But I do want to talk about it because even if we just consider it as a myth or a story or a parable, I think it's very important to just listen to it. Okay, so hear me out on this. Through the power of crystals, these guys in Atlantis were able to create this advanced civilization, supposedly. Okay, so just go with me. I get it. It's a myth. It's either true or not true. I'm not making a case for it either way. That's not the point of this. But they understood and worked with the subtle forces outside of their physical body. They understood how to tap into a greater source of power. All right, they knew how to manage or control that life force that exists out here. These higher vibrational frequencies that come in through our different layers of body, and we use energy centers like chakras to step down to the next level and step down like a transformer, so that high vibrational energy can actually be received and then expressed in our physical world. So they get this. They knew it. And it's been said that the same way we burn coal and oil, they knew how to unlock the hidden power inside of seeds and grain. That they could utilize the energy stored in there and turn it into a usable form of energy to, power stuff in there. The way we use electricity, to turn your blender on or watch your television or whatever it is that you have power going to. So they knew how to do this. And it's been said that they had this one great crystal. They called it the Great Crystal or something like that. But the crystal would be charged by the sun. So the sun would rise and the crystal would absorb and transform the pranic forces of the sun and store them, and then then this crystal would transfer or transmit that energy through the air, through waves, to power things. So they were supposed to have like flying ships and stuff that weren't even fueled by putting something in the ship. It was powered from the great crystal that was far away. And I was like, that's crazy. But then if you think about what Nikola Tesla created in his work, and I need to learn more about that before I open my mouth or say anything. That's another area that I'm going to dive into and explore and report back to you guys. But just think about the concept of all of these books are written for me. Like Tesla did his work so that I could understand something greater. Like I'm beginning from where Tesla left off, and I want to know all those things and I want to learn that stuff because he taught us about transmitting energy, electricity through the air, through the airwaves, so that it was free electricity for everyone, everywhere. But I think it was Edison and Rockefeller that put the kibosh on that. They're like, no way, we need to bottle this up and sell it. And so the business was born. But I want you to just understand this idea that these Atlanteans were purported to understand that crystals were tools, and that different crystals had different characteristics and did different things. They had different tools, and they knew this, and they knew how to harness the energies, the subtle energies and life force that existed outside of them. They knew how to work with this. And they would grow specific crystals in order to do specific things and tasks, whether they were involved in technology or, healing, whatever it was. And we're doing the same thing. We got people. I mean, where do you think all those computer chips come from? They're going into a controlled area and they're specifically growing those crystals. It's what I referred to earlier as doping. They're growing crystals to have specific characteristics and qualities to do different things. They understand the inherent power that is dormant inside of these things that come from the earth, and how we're able to utilize and use those things. I mean, think about the atomic bomb. By just a teaspoon of uranium, it leveled an entire city. That's how much power was stored inside of that. So it's about tapping into this immense power that's there, that's invisible, that we can't see, and we don't know how to touch it because of the way that we're using our mind, thinking that it's only this physical world that we exist in, okay? So I'm not going to get all hippie on you or anything. I'm just saying that there's more to it, so be open to it. Don't think that you know it all. Don't think that you got it all figured out, because the second that you do, you shut off and you're done, and you're not open to learn anything new. So the idea of what these crystals represented to these people, I think, is a fun conversation for us to begin. So let's talk just a little bit more about the liquid crystal matrix. So in your physical body, you're made up of a bunch of cells. And people tend to think of the cell as this bag of fluid liquid that flows around everywhere. And that's been the traditional model that's taught in biology. But it's been proven to not be the case. It's just not the fact. That there is a structure to it. And from the very tiniest part of that structure to the bigness of who we are built in the perfect order and repetition. Okay? The cellular membrane I mentioned, the microtubules or cytoskeleton inside of the cell, the sort of scaffolding that holds it around. If a cell wants to move over there, then the cytoskeleton scaffolding inside of it, it sends little proteins up runners and it makes the thing move. It doesn't just fluidly roll over there like water, like a water droplet. It's taking action. It's moving that way. The cilia in hair cells and flagella, the centrioles and the centrosomes involved in our replication. All right, they all are crystalline in nature. That from the very basic part into the cell and into the tissue and into the organ and into the system, it is perfect. And it is perfect in its order and its repetition. And the thing that makes it perfect is its ability to receive information from perfection, from source, from God, from the Creator. You know the saying that we are built in the image of perfection, and it is true that if we do not interfere with that power, then it's seated inside of us is that perfection just waiting to express itself at every moment. All we have to do is not screw it up, basically. We just have to not interfere and not get in the way of it. And I believe that our journey here in this physical world is about learning the lessons and getting rid of the gunk so that we can express our highest potential. So that's another conversation. But I want you to just understand this. Your cellular structure, your body, your physical body is a liquid crystal. And there's this matrix that exists inside of you. So it's solid in there. Like there are webs of connective tissue and sinew that, fibroblasts that come and create an anchor or sort of permanence to positions of things. All right. Don't read into that too much. Maybe that was the wrong way to say that. But I'm just saying that inside of you, that there is, wherever there's empty space, there's something working there to bring order and structure to it. This is why crystals have the lowest entropy of anything in the world, because they are the most ordered. See, entropy is about moving towards disorder and chaos. But as living people, living systems, we are constantly rebuilding towards more order. We eat food, we break it down, and then we assemble it into higher order functions. We are moving towards, or we're negative entropy. So these crystals are, by definition, have the lowest entropy because they're perfect in their order and in their repetition. So here's what I'm wanting you to understand. That when you take, let's say you take a crystal, physical crystal, and with the frequencies that thing is able to emit, and you enter into this relationship with it with your mind, what that crystal is doing is it is amplifying the thoughts that you have. And here's a list of all the crazy things that crystals do. All right, this isn't my opinion. This is science saying crystals are involved in reception, reflection, refraction, magnification, transduction, amplification, focusing, transmutation, transference, transformation, storage, capacitance, stabilization, modulation, balancing, and transmittance. And transmittance is the one that I really want to talk about here. But the same way that you can use homeopathy to create an effect in the physical world, you can use flower essence, essential oils. Okay, I'm saying that these work on a subtle level. They are influencing and affecting the subtle energy bodies around us. What crystals do is the same thing. They are resonating with some higher vibrational frequency. I sound crazy when I say that. Crystals, in essence, are a way that we are amplifying and transmitting what's already going on in our head. The thought forms, the waves of thought, however you want to think of it or whatever you want to call it, those things are amplified by crystals. So this is where all these crystal healers come from, and I'm going to use this crystal and put it on your body here, and it's going to heal everything. And I'm not really too keen on all of that, and here's why. It's because you don't need that crystal, because you are walking around with a big giant crystal. You are a crystal. You are a freaking crystal. You are a living liquid crystal. And so every thought that you have is amplified. Boom. The perfect order and repetition of your cellular structure takes in that information and transmits it. It does that list of all of those things that I just read to you. Okay, so really take this to heart. Your ability to use your mind to impact and attract the things that you want in your life, it is about honoring the tool that you have. I said earlier that you're using it all the time. I say that about the law of attraction. It's not something that you do or use. It's a constant. It's like gravity. It's always happening. So it's just how you orient yourself to that law. Okay? If you fall out of a tree and break your arm, you're not going to say gravity broke your arm. You're going to say, oh, I screwed up and, I didn't really take gravity into account there. And that's what happened. The same thing is true here with law of attraction and with this conversation of our body being a giant receiver, a transmitter, a transference, an amplifier, a list of all that crazy stuff that I just read to you. That's your body. That's what you're doing. That's what you're capable of. That's what you're doing right now this second. So in moments when you feel inspired and creative and connected and you're in spirit and your hair just stands up and you're like, yeah, I just feel it. You are, boom, You are beaming this out into the world. You are flooding everything, everywhere, instantaneously, without space and time. That thought is everywhere. Okay? The same thing is true in reverse. That if you're thinking, I suck and I'm not good enough, or I hate that bus driver, that guy is such an ass, I just want to go. I had this thought. I'm going to find out what his name is. I'm going to find out where he lives. I'm going to do something mean. This is human nature. Immediately I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But for some reason, it fed something to me for a moment. It made me feel good. All right. I was resonating. I was amplifying that hatred, and I was finding things that matched it to resonate with. Okay. You know what I mean. You know it. I was gonna hack him. I was gonna totally crash his computer and make him sorry that he ever messed with me. See, it wasn't me, and those things were not serving my higher good. I was using my mind inappropriately, and so I was using my body, my liquid crystal, like a giant amplification to resonate with things in the world that matched that. People, places, and circumstances that were not even on my radar screen, that I didn't even know, I had never met, they were not on my awareness at all. Whoom, and they came to me to deliver the very thing that I wanted. This is law of attraction. I put it out there, it came to me. Okay, like attracts like. And if I'm focused on something and I'm putting it out there and amplifying it, then I'm going to get it back. And I think a lot of people are really good at this. They're just good in the not very good side of it. They're great at attracting doom and gloom and problems. They're great at having fires to run around and put out. It's always a tragedy. There's always a story. There's always a reason. Always an excuse. There's always something why. They're always a victim. They run from stressful experience to stressful experience, and that's their life. And they become wired that way until they're locked into hypnotic rhythm, until it becomes such a powerful, permanent part of their life that they don't know how to break free until some calamity comes along to take place, like financial crash, like disease, like ill health, some problem, to finally shake them enough to break that pattern that they have. So I'm inviting you to discover that right now. You don't have to wait for some giant problem in your life to take place. You just have to accept responsibility for where you're at. You have to say, I'm really awesome at attracting a bunch of crap I don't like. That means I did it. I'm excited that I did it and I'm responsible, because it means I can do something else. It means I'm in control. It means that I'm actually really good at creating stuff. I am a co-creator. I'm not the creator, all right? I am a co-creator and I am influencing. See, this very morning as I'm recording this, I got into some stupid little spat with my wife. And I was saying something about my family and her family, and she didn't like it, and she fired back, and we got into a fight, and I got heated, and I'm like, I'm just going to go in the other room. I need a little bit of time to cool off. And what happened was, I sat in here, and I realized, okay, again, to know and not do is to not know. So I said, all right, I lost it for a minute. I wasn't in control. Something else was took over me, all right? I would dare say it was some traumatic memory from the past that was activated and was playing out in my life in that moment, in present time. Whatever it was, I don't know. A lot of that stuff is subconscious. That's where I spend a lot of my time with patients, is getting them on the table and dealing with the subconscious memory, the things stored in emotional memory. But I digress. I'm sitting in my office here where I'm filming right now, and I'm thinking, all right, what happened? Either she got triggered on some defending her family and some emotion that went nuts, and she started beaming that out and amplified it, and I picked it up. And then I started either playing along with it, or it ignited something in me. See, this is where your brain can go nuts too, trying to figure it all out. So what it was, what the problem, and where did it come from? Was it about her being mad? Was it about me being competitive and wanting to win an argument? Back and forth, escalating until finally, whew. So I walk away and I go, I'm sitting back here in the office and I go, all right, I am right now with these emotions and feelings. I'm not working towards my higher good. I'm not working towards the goals and things that I want to achieve in my life. This energy is not helping at all. And I'm being hurtful to people that I love. Okay, so I got to cut this out. But ultimately, what's happening? I'm transmitting this, and here's where it smacked me in the face. I heard my son wake up, and he was out there talking with my wife. He's 4 years old. And I realized that I was, in this moment of being pissed off, I was sending him that message. Now, he's in the other room. He doesn't see me. He's not, mimicking me because monkey see, monkey do. On a subtle level, he is so connected to me. And he is tuned into whatever I'm tuned into. See, he's looking to me as a way to be, as a template. He wants to know what stations should he be tuned into. And if I'm back here broadcasting this anger station, then he's in there tuning into it on a subtle level. And so I realized right then, hey, my petty crap about trying to be right is so unimportant. It's so trivial and stupid. And it's at the expense of the ones that I love the most. So I want you right now to think about something that maybe is totally unrelated. Like, let's say it's your spouse we're talking about in a relationship, but you're mad about something happening at work. Okay? When you're spending time being mad about that thing at work, you are impacting those closest to you. See, Napoleon Hill talked about this concept a lot. He called it mastermind, that it was the meeting of two harmonious minds to achieve something greater than they could on their own. He said that the criteria for marriage should not be romantic interest or relationship, but it should be that those two people have similar coherence, that their thought forms, that their position and direction in life, that their goals were similar, and that they could support and complement each other on their way to that. Because ultimately, you don't want to be in a marriage with somebody that's creating interference, that you guys are just energetically butting heads on everything. You need coherence. You need that relationship to be coherent, like a laser, like a crystal. You need that relationship to be able to amplify that end goal and that highest good for you. Instead of what a lot of people do is they get into something because of the emotions and the chemicals and they got a cute butt. Let's get married. I'm being kind of dismissive about that, but that is not enough, is what I'm saying. And that the real reason behind any relationship, whether it's romantic or business, and I'm applying this to the thing that really gets to my heart the most, and it's my children. That it's my duty to get over all of my bullshit so that I can lead by example. I can lead from the front, and I can create a world from them that is different from the world that was created for me, right? That I'm not just doomed to repeat everything that happened to me and then they repeat it to theirs. Like, I'm in control. If I can, if that's even real. But I'm saying that I'm making the decision. That I'm saying that I am going to minimize, because I want to say I'm not going to give them any negative influence in their life. But that can't happen. So I'm going to minimize the amount of input and influence I have on the expression of their potential and their ability. See, I don't want to create a bunch of junk for them right now in their childhood that they have to work through later on in their adult years. Okay? A degree of that will happen, yeah. We're human. I'm not perfect, and not everything is going to work out perfect. But it all begins with a question. And the question is, what is out there? The question is, what more can I learn? The question is, how deep does this go? And if you are always asking questions, then you're always moving in the right direction. Second you think you've got to figure it out, you're done. Might as well just clock out and go home. You are powerful. You are so powerful. Inside of you is an untapped potential, an unknowable amount of energy and strength, a series. I don't have to go into all this stuff. I want you to look inward. I want you to really love yourself. And I want you to honor how powerful you really are. All right, guys. I will see you then, or see you at another time.